Welcome to Elite Table Talk, where we are going to dive into some genuine conversations, some juicy information with some health professionals or other professionals in their own field, from doctors, accountants, lawyers, chiropractors, you name it. We are literally interviewing these people to help unpack their routines, discover what works for them and what doesn't, so we can dive into their personal life and their professional life, so you can capture some valuable nuggets that you can use to help your own health and fitness journey. So let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to the Elite Table Talk. Really interesting and fascinating episode today. We're going to do a deep dive into the mind of Forrest. Now, who is Forrest? It's not between the trees. It's actually a person, hypnotherapist, and someone who I made great connection with and friend a few years ago at an event called Wolfpack with Mark Otobre. So thank you, Mr. Otobre, in introducing us. And we're here to get to know Forrest, because I am not an expert in hypnotherapy. So we're going to get the expert here herself on today. So she's a lover. She's a mother of two beautiful children, or little monsters, however you want to look at them, stuff on their gobs, and a dog lover. So no cats, but dog lover. So Forrest, welcome.
I love a little kitty too, but too difficult to look after. I love my dog.
So Forrest, let's go straight into the first question, which we ask everyone is, what is your daily routine?
Oh, so my morning routine is I wake up around 5:45 a.m. usually, and about 4 times a week. And I will probably spend about 5 minutes visualizing. So I utilize that time of day to just visualize around an issue or something I want to manifest. And the reason I do that is because when you're falling asleep and when you're waking up, you're already in the state of subconscious reprogramming. So I will just spend 5 minutes doing that. It's very, very simple. And then I literally roll out of bed and I'm in the gym by 6 a.m. So, yeah.
By the gym by 6 a.m.?
It's like 2 minutes from my house. So I literally just I sleep as much as I can until I have to wake up. So yeah, it's pretty rushed from there.
All right.
Yeah, I have about 5 minutes to get in.
So we don't have a 1 hour prep routine. We just get up 5:45, manifest somewhere where you're stuck.
Yes, or it will be either a problem. So I will spend time visualizing on a problem, or I will spend visualizing on something I want to manifest or call in. And I'll actually change the position of my eyes depending on what I am doing. So a problem, something painful, or something pleasurable.
Yeah. Most people, it's like, sky's the limit, visualize the future and achieving, and you're looking to bring problems to you.
No, not problems to me. It's to set, if you lean into the pain, and you can even dramatize it, honestly, your subconscious mind is binary. So it always wants to take you towards pleasure and away from pain. So when you lean into the pain, it's actually a really powerful motivational technique, because what you're doing is you're directing your mind upon fixing an issue.
Okay. So you go into problem solving mode. Nice.
Yeah. So you're really directing that and putting some focus upon it. It's a great technique. And then from there, because I've got kids, when I'm back home, it's rounding them up for kindergarten, school, all of that. Lunch boxes, the normal mum things, up until I get them dropped off.
So we just got out then. Could you just repeat that again? So you round up the kids.
Round up the kids, get them ready, drop them off, and then my work day starts.
Yeah. Oh. And how old are the two little ones?
3 and 8.
Wow. How is it having the second one? Because obviously you learn how to manage the first one.
Easier.
Up.
Everyone said, you will hear this a lot, Carl, but everyone says the first one breaks you in. It's a culture shock. You're like, whoa, because, as a woman, your brain shrinks when you're pregnant on average by 7%.
Yeah, wow.
And then over the next
What's my excuse?
And then over the next 3 years, once you've had the baby, your brain basically has to regrow and rebuild. But the whole time it's reprogramming, because now you've got to you have this other thing hanging off you. as a woman that you've got to handle. And so ultimately, though, once you've had children, you actually have better survival strategies than before because of the growth that your mind has to overcome and go through during that period.
I guess probably before we dive into the hypnotherapy side and how you started that, with your knowledge on like your knowledge of hypnotherapy and how people feel stuck, like this is why I came to you to break that pattern. When you were pregnant 8 years ago or 9 years ago, were you sort of starting to reprogram yourself because your brain's down 7%, but you're going to upregulate it like for a newer you? Like, were you thinking that way, or were you just like?
At that point, not necessarily. Like, it's a long time ago. I wasn't super conscious of it. I was more conscious of it with my second. I was quite young with my first. So, yeah. I did know that fact around my brain shrinking 7%. And I could definitely say, yeah, you never really get it back. There's things that there's probably a lot of facts or things I could do in my mind before kids that I definitely can't do now as well.
Yeah. But when the second one came, you're like, all right, game time.
Game time. I was like, it is on. Like, I had, you have the skills. Like, you don't have the skills with the first child as much. So the second one, I was like, it is on. I've got this down pattern sorted. I know exactly how to make this baby sleep, routine, everything done.
And you now have a babysitter. Good to go.
Yeah. We have our
working on it.
No, we do, but.
So we've got a morning routine. We're wrangling up the kids. We got a fun fact about pregnancy, which I didn't know, which I like. Just from that to your routine, you then go to the gym. So we train. What are we training?
Yes, I'm just doing reformer Pilates, and I do yoga once a week as well, once or twice. Purely because I like a lot of different workouts actually, but purely this one because it's so close to where I live, and that time factor is so important for me. They're 45-minute sessions, so in, out, next thing. Yeah,
so very time crunch.
Yeah.
Awesome. And from there, how does the rest of the day pan out? So we've got the kids and then we're off to work.
Work. So either I'm doing clients, I'm working with clients. So I'm literally hypnotizing, which is like really intensive sessions. As you know, Kyle, they're like 2 hours long. We go really, really, really deep. And
short time, 2 hours.
Wow, it's intense for people. And it's just that deep process. And I might be talking to some clients, that sort of thing. And if I'm not doing that, I might be doing my own self-development or reading. Yeah.
Yep. So let's talk to the first part, which is hypnotherapy. What is hypnotherapy? But also then the specialization that you do, which is RTT.
Yes. So there's different kinds of hypnotherapy. So there's like I guess a primary kind, which is it's just based on suggestions. So it's kind of very easy to do for someone, and it's not as effective either, in my view. I mean, I guess it depends what you're looking to resolve, but it basically involves deep relaxation, receiving some suggestions in your subconscious mind with the hope that that's going to make the shifts required. What I do, so there are more intensive forms of hypnosis, which is where I'm at. And basically what I'm doing is I'm using hypnosis as an inroad into people's subconscious minds to start reprogramming their autopilot responses and thoughts and visions that are basically creating whatever issue or the symptoms they've come to me for. So symptoms might be something like, anxiety, panic attacks, depression, low mood. You might be blocked or stagnated. There's a bunch of things we might keep doing to sabotage ourselves, whether that's eating food, addictive patterns or behaviors, filling a void, relationship issues. All of that I see as symptoms. So I'm not concerned or interested so much in how a psychologist might categorize or diagnose someone, because when you take the symptoms and you go underneath into the subconscious mind, that's where you find what caused it, which is root memories and issues. And so what I'm basically doing is I'm applying different tools and techniques to unknot that, to get people more aligned with, I guess, their truth and that inner peace and that love and all the beautiful bliss and joy and all of that nice stuff. Yeah.
Nice stuff. What?
Away from
And
the suffering.
what it is, so how long have you been doing this for?
8 years now. Yeah.
Same time as the first one. And how, because you didn't start with RTT straight away.
So before I did RTT, I have a degree. I did a BSc in medical physiology and psychology. So it was already, it was already a pathway into, I had that general openness around healing modalities, well-being, mental health, these sorts of things. But I was working in various businesses and things. Like, I didn't fall into therapy until I had my first child. Yeah.
And what led you towards the RTT? Like, what was, you're in the modalities helping heal people. What led you to then RTT? Like, what was the... I guess the way this probably came up was how we started, which we were talking about masculine and feminine energy and the imbalance. So obviously with any modality and self-education is that we hit a gap and we're like, there's got to be more, and we start digging through the rabbit hole and we come out. So for you 8 years ago, when did you start going down that rabbit hole and unpack and go,
I went down the rabbit hole as to what I practiced, the effectiveness of it, a long time before I actually became a practitioner. So my teacher, Marissa Pierre, who's very renowned now today globally for her therapy tools, I met her and she actually worked with me when I was in my early 20s. And so I was aware of what she did, and I knew it was so effective compared to, say, turning up and seeing a psychologist and doing talk therapy, which is basically talking till the cows come home. And, how does that actually change your patterns or behaviors or your thoughts? It might give you some nice language tools around understanding or describing that, but is that really getting in there and doing that deep work that people need to actually make transformation? So a long time before I fell into RTT, I was definitely on this path of figuring this stuff out, and looking at different modalities and, meeting different people and different people who inspired or influenced me into healing. So that in itself was a long journey. RTT basically slotted in this form of hypnosis that I do. When I found out that Marissa Pierre was now teaching her approach. And so I flew, at the moment I found out, within a week, I knew instantly I was doing it. And so within a few weeks, I was basically on a plane and I went to Los Angeles and she taught me.
How long were you there for?
I was there for a few weeks.
Long time. And were you pregnant at that time?
No, I had a baby.
Just had the baby.
Yeah.
Hey, Mum. Hey, Dad. Here you go. Bye.
Basically, yeah.
Oh, wow. And how much of your previous experience versus RTT, like, you still use some parts of your old, like, education, or is it all full RTT now? Like, is there a split?
Oh, yeah, everything comes into it, right? Like, experience comes into it, because what I'm doing is very different, because it's, number one, it's very much what I'm doing now, because it's a bit more evolved from RTT as a foundation. It's an open, I take a very open architecture approach with people. So it's about when they're under hypnosis, when you're looking for those root causations, the way that they've been conditioned or programmed over time, that's basically causing, anybody to think or feel or react or respond in a way that they want to resolve. when you go back, you're going into people's experiences. So it's a very open field. And of course, all of my personal life experience comes into that, because they're the seeds that help you really relate to someone or understand what it is they're going through. So it all kind of, when I have someone under hypnosis, a lot comes into it because I'm in total flow at that point, just in that present moment with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No restrictions. And how has it evolved over the last 8 years? As you said, it's all encompasses through your research and deep diving into rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Come out with more information. How do you, like, for example, was looking at the past, like, most memories are deleted, distorted, and then distinguished. Like, so it's like, we can go through the exact same thing, but we both have a different memory. Then, this then leads to celebration. Yay! Leads to some people then feeling stuck in that memory where others will thrive from it. So, like, over the years of working with people, how have you then become that open architect to then come from above and make those suggestions to guide people through it?
Yeah, I think the point that is really interesting about what you made is like why some people get stuck and why other people sail on, right? So that's an interesting distinguishment, because really for example, if we go through let's call it a heavy period in adult life, we have a life event occurs, perhaps it's a loss, perhaps it's a divorce, perhaps it's an abusive relationship, career issues, whatever it is. When we go through that in adult life, really, and that triggers a heavier episode for us. So we have more symptoms, or we might be more anxious, panic sets in, whatever it is. We might have more addictive patterns showing up versus someone else who might experience the same event and I guess they're better equipped to handle it. It comes down to, what coping skills did we actually learn in childhood, and also what is significant or direct or specific experiences we had, and how we inevitably had to cope with those experiences as children. So an analogy could be, you could have two people, let's say they are on a boat, and they both have the exact same experience. They have a near drowning experience. They get stuck under the sail in a storm, whatever, and they both make it out barely alive. You could have one person say, God, thank God, I'm alive. Thank you, universe. Fantastic. And you could have somebody else who says, oh my God, that was just the worst experience. I couldn't fathom I will never go on a boat again. They're going to have nightmares about it. They might have panic about it. If their children dare get invited onto a boat, they're going to freak out. So you say, well, here's two people, same experiences, very, very different responses. One is having like a post-traumatic response and the other is okay. So the question is, what are the unique aspects underneath that has predisposed somebody to have those responses? Was the idea of nearly dying triggering because they lost someone significant as a child and they've got emotions that haven't been worked through because of that? Perhaps. Is the reason I use the word open architecture because we all have a unique perspective and we all have different experiences. So it really just comes down to, what was it for you? So what I'm doing when I put people under hypnosis is I'm finding the root causes that are creating the symptoms. Sometimes for people it's obvious. They might know, look, I went through this trauma, this trauma, this trauma. They've done a lot of therapy, but they still have the issues. Other people might have no idea what they're going through or why it is. Often it's that way with phobias as well. No idea why can't I drive on a highway? They don't know. They don't know what the cause is. So it's about looking underneath to find that causation, then working with people to change how they're relating to it, and using hypnosis to instill the better coping skills so that they can handle life, or they can handle those sorts of things that come up in life. just like the person that's able to breeze through the experience.
So with over the years, you've learned really how and understand that there are experiences that happen from childhood to adulthood that helps to shape an individual to the moment where they feel stuck, and you look to work backwards so they have that opportunity where you take them back to the boat where they're like, instead of the person like, that's the worst thing ever, you're like, cool, well, what are the blessings of it? So then they can move forward from it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of wisdom that goes into that, bringing people back. And really, I really, it's very, very true that all human suffering comes from not really knowing the reality. Because when we're children as well, we have experience, or our younger selves, we, unless somebody guides us, unless we have, for example, a very strong or close parent, which would be a protective factor. But for a lot of people, that's not the case, particularly from our generation and above, Carl, people are a bit more woke and today when they're parenting. But people just don't, as a child, the way we respond is distorted. We put so much more truth to our experiences than the reality actually is. So, for example, if you have a parent who is too busy or ignores you or is abusive or has an addiction issue or whatever, as a child, you might think, or your parents divorced, you might think that's because of you. It's your fault. Now, as an adult, we'll say, of course it isn't. Your parent is ignoring you because there's something innate to you that is unlovable.
Well,
but
I was a little bugger.
As children, we don't, what?
I was a little bugger, so, maybe.
As children, we don't know any better. And so we create really distorted self-concepts and self-beliefs off of our experiences, and they're just not aligned with truth. So what I'm doing is I'm helping people see, or bringing them back into alignment with what the reality actually is. I mean, all children deserve to be loved and to realize they're lovable, for example.
What about in an instance where, like if I was to use myself as an example, like love my father a lot more now than when I was a kid, but a lot of the time when, like, for example, when people give feedback or they go to critique someone, usually it's a reflection of themselves. So,
Absolutely.
for a lot of people, like, we're never taught this through school. So I guess for anyone that would be listening, what are some questions that have helped you to help, like, personally unpack self? Because, maybe there's times that we react at, we've got control of our emotional state and our actions, but sometimes our emotions take hold of us quicker than the action. So what are things that someone could be doing to go, oops, and then re-nurture that so then they're ahead of it next time?
It's such a good point, because if you are judging someone, there is a trait in that you are disowning in yourself. That you aren't realizing. There's something very unconscious to that. So it's about learning, and over time, to like find those little breadcrumbs or those nuggets, those points of yourself where, there is a rise, and to really unpack, what's going on. There's a lot of ways you can do it. So if you come in for a session with me, that's really effective, because it's difficult, particularly when we're starting on a personal development journey or a therapy journey, to step outside the box we live in and really like unpack our issues, our problems from a mindset that isn't already the mindset that's creating it. And so that's why it's important to have someone to be able to bounce off, who can guide you. Obviously, I've done what I do so much that I'm now really good at having that voice for myself, or to be able to bring that in and realize. But a lot of that is through, just the experience, the repeat experience of working with other people has made me really good at being able to pull out, whatever it is that might cause a rise out of me or cause a reaction. And I think a good technique is to find the little breadcrumbs. You can write them down, and then you can immediately see, oh, what is the root cause? Just go a little bit under. Where is that coming from? And seeing that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So ask, where is it coming from? Just constantly challenging and questioning it.
Yeah, you question it. Definitely question it. Go down. Say, where is this coming from? What is this? So if you're casting judgment, what is it about this person? What is the reflection that I'm receiving about me? What is the disowned part or the unconscious part? That's so important to do, because it's never about the other person. It's the same in relationships too. They're a mirror, aren't they? Into our own resolve. And likewise, when I'm working with my clients, I don't necessarily see, I see that whatever issues they're coming to me with as a part of myself too. There's like a collective psyche aspect, because I think we're also conditioned as well in modern therapy to think about, here I am as this individual, and I suffer anxiety. I have this like anxiety box that you can tick for me. And really, a lot of these issues are collective, but we're almost programmed or conditioned into believing it's something wrong with me that isn't wrong with other people, that other people aren't suffering. But the way we've built our society is these are common symptoms that are very much collective, and they're collectively based. So whatever is happening with you on the micro scale or the individual scale, you can look at the societal scale and see it too. And I think that's important because it helps us step out of this individual kind of alone, disconnected mindset into realizing that this connection that we all have, and how these are wider issues. Sometimes it's not just about us or what we've done or where we're from. It's like, why have you felt so disconnected? Or why have you felt so alone in the first place? And there's a wider thing about the societal support that we could have had, but we didn't get. And, we're connected creatures. We're kind of like ants, we actually are all operating together, just on we need a bigger scale to look down and see us or interacting, but we're very much a collective species. Of course we are. It's our connection that basically is everything to humanity.
Well, what do you I love how you say that, because people are like, oh, I'm really anxious, and I'm like, so out of 8.2 billion people, you're the only one that's experiencing it? They're like, yes. Okay. What do you feel has caused that disconnect? Like there is so many people, yet people still feel isolated and disconnected. Even relationships.
This is a rabbit hole I'm going down now in many ways, because it's not, like that route, it goes beyond just your individual life, right? This is society. This is like going down generations. If you feel disconnected, which is like a root, this is a common root issue, all addicts, for example, and you can have a lot of different addictions, not just drugs, not even just food. What are you addicted to? Maybe you're addicted to love or lust, or, there's a bunch of things where we try to get our external validation work. Maybe you're addicted to being a martyr, all sorts of things, trying to get this external validation. That goes back to feeling fundamentally disconnected. Now, why? This is a fantastic question, because if it basically implies that you initially didn't feel a full sense of connection with your mother. Why? Well, was your mother properly supported? Or was she living in a patriarchal society, in a capitalist society where there wasn't much support around? Or was she just programmed to be like that because her mother was like that, or his mother was like that? And then you go back and back and back, and you say, wow, like you can just keep pulling the thread. You can go back, right. Patriarchy has caused a lot of these issues, in my view. It's that, as you mentioned before, that masculine and the feminine balance is out. The divine masculine, the divine feminine, if you want to go into that energetic side, if we want to think really on this macro and micro level, there's so much of this light feminine energy and this dark masculine, which is like authority and control, and women trying to appease that, and also trying to, I guess, make up for this feeling of disconnect. Now, sometimes when I regress people under hypnosis, we go back to their original conception. So they will spontaneously regress to an early womb memory. So it's they're very primitive memories. They're not necessarily memories where there's thoughts or feelings. It's very, very early. And one of the most incredible patterns I see at that point of conception is this inherent tendency to feel somewhat uncomfortable or different or disturbed or disconnected. And what I always say to my clients who are in that space is, well, if you feel, this is your first memory, this is your first awareness within consciousness, and you feel uncomfortable. And the big question is why is there discomfort at that point when that's all you know? Because it can't be all someone knows. Right? There is a feeling of, I am not fully aligned to love, or I am not fully aligned to this divine, pure source of love. And there's this idea that I'm somewhat out of whack with that. In literally coming into humanity, or coming into that human form, coming into that initial life, there's this idea of being not fully connected to that pure source. And that's incredibly interesting to me because, it says a lot about, my job is basically resolving people's suffering, or resolving, this is what I do every day. It's resolving people's suffering. And so the big question is why is everyone suffering in the first place? And you see how deep it goes, because guaranteed that thread goes into womb after womb after womb. You can go back generations, go way back in time. There's still that feeling of this isn't quite, there's something a little bit uncomfortable about this. There's a discomfort. So there's an innate duality, between, I guess, what is aligned or comfortable or pleasurable, and what is uncomfortable or painful, what is black, white, positive, negative, masculine, feminine. There's an innate duality that I think we battle with from the start. And so the big question is how to bring things into oneness more, or non-duality more, which is really what I'm talking about when I say balancing the masculine and the feminine too.
How so this is obviously, so we got Marissa Peer, big thing for you, which was the RTT, then two is an experiencing, understanding adulthood and childhood experiences, and now the understanding, now the third thing that you're going into is unpacking that, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, actually isn't really stemming from the identity of self, it's coming from generations. And thanks, Maliki. That's my great-great-grandfather. And the parents there. Much love for you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You could have done better by me.
Yeah. That's what they gave you. Though, and
you get like an old black and white photo and put like devil horns and like make like an anti
without the negative, there can't be positive. So people are like, like this morning we had a lady and she's like, I'm so anxious. And so it's like, we all have a choice with energy. Is like, you can put it in that, put it elsewhere. But most people, it sounds like from what you're really unpacking, is that people don't play it out enough to ask the questions like, why am I feeling that way? I have an assessment due. Okay, well, what's the outcome? And they're not breaking it down. So they've labeled it for so long that it is themselves. And so, they're not, once you've labeled something, the biggest concern is that you aren't questioning the label. So with that, like trying to summarize
good point.
How long would it take? So let's hypothetically, we're conscious and aware of everything we're doing. We've gotten rid of the suffering. Though the cool thing with your habit is you're bringing it to your forefront to kind of look at it, appreciate it, and go, okay, this is how I'm going to handle it. This is what I'm going to do. How long, in your, like, with the knowledge you have, do you think it would take? Would it take like 2 more generations? Like, I, have a kid, and then they've got to have a kid for that to kind of not be where we are, or to improve?
Yeah, I got you. So I think the big question is, what is like almost what I'm talking about, if we go really spiritual, this is almost like, so what does it take to have a baby that is free from that generational or ancestral stuff? It's almost like immaculate conception, isn't it? That's what immaculate conception is. It's like these people that are like have been born in historically, that are more high vibrational, they're blissful, they're more joyful, they're happy, a prince of happiness and joy. And so,
Or a princess, or a princess,
or a princess, absolutely, damn straight. And so the question is, within that is it possible? Like, can we now, with the knowledge and the technology and the wisdom, because look, therapy, I don't believe in the normal therapy models. We'll go into that later, like the stuff the government pushes. But we have the technology within therapy and spirituality and all of this stuff to really transform very significantly and break a lot of these patterns that I'm talking about. So the big question is, like, can we immaculately conceive today? And I think obviously it takes an incredible level of high consciousness and awareness. I think for the most part, people, if that's what you're really invested in, you could get a lot closer. And then I think that we can have masters for sure that can absolutely do it. And then people have done it in history, haven't they?
Thanks.
Yeah. Come on, Carl.
Your 2 daughters, of course, and myself and Kate, of course. But would it? So we could do it today. Well, obviously, I can't do it. It'd obviously be our kids in the future and your kids. So you believe the next generation has more of a chance if people today are more Christian?
I think we can get closer and closer, and more masterful people can do it. They've done it in the past, and we'll do it again. And I think, but for the main population, I think, I'm very optimistic and hopeful. I think we're already in that direction. People are more aware. We're in the middle of a happiness revolution. We've had industrial, we've had technology. I think it's happiness now. It's all about well-being. And we're becoming obviously so much more aware and conscious around how we treat each other and what our expectations are. So we're definitely entering this era of humanity. And yeah, the question is, and this is kind of the rabbit hole I'm in, is how do we do that? How do I accomplish this for my clients? Because my mission is just alleviating suffering. How do we do this? Because, I see a lot, and I hear a lot of stories, and I see a lot of what kind of fundamentally goes wrong. And so, how do we really fully wipe a lot of the broken stuff from the past and bam, just step it up, keep evolving?
Why? I guess obviously, wipe away. Why would we want to do that? Like, my belief is that
trauma, like the genetic trauma. Wipe away the broken. Well, yeah. Like, it goes down through generations, right? The tendency to stress, people with ADHD, that there's a genetic predisposition to having higher levels of sensitivity. If you stack that with, for example, a more traumatic or more disconnected childhood, or more negative stuff happening, or more adversity, you're more likely you're going to have ADHD. But there's a component there that is that's genetic. It goes down through the lines, and it's the same as survivors of the Holocaust, their children and their children's children. We can see how the genes, there's stress is turned on. So that disposition, we know, just moves down. Yeah.
Well, say about ADHD and dyslexia, you're saying they're more sensitive, and just through generation and generation.
Dyslexia, I'm not sure about. ADHD,
So
yeah.
it
Dyslexia,
can
probably, but yeah.
heighten and become more sensitive. What do you mean by that?
You're genetically predisposed, so you're more sensitive. Yeah.
Bugger. Okay. I'm a sensitive cell.
But I'm a great look. I'm a great believer in epigenetics. Just because that has been the case in the past doesn't mean it's the case in the future, because we're becoming better at this personal development and this transformation game.
I'm sensitive. I'm offended. It's too late. Sorry. How epigenetics? More rabbit holes, though. Due to time, we will keep it tight.
Right.
How would we? Yeah, we could be here all day. With there's a few great points you've made. I guess 2 questions I would want to wrap with is what are the biggest misconceptions that you're seeing? So you've mentioned talk therapy. So you've done psychology, hypnotherapy, but you led to doing RTT. So what are the common, like, a lot of people, you're going, they say you're going under and you have open suggestion. So, one conception is like, oh, she's going to mind control me to do things that I don't want to do. It's like, well, that's probably false. Unless that's everyone catching on to what you're really doing. So like that, which is not true, what misconceptions are out there
around hypnosis?
Yeah,
look, that's a big one. Control. I think in the general population as well, people have an idea, like, because there's hypnosis and there's hypnotherapy, which is hypnosis with therapy. I think people link the idea of hypnotherapy to just a general hypnosis that you're more likely to have seen on TV, like get up on stage, can you, bark like a dog, and someone's like, people might think that it's kind of that random or weird. So I think there's in the general population, there's a more kind of like, what is this thing? And like, ooh, is it weird? From my perspective, like, the easiest thing is hypnosis, because we go in and out of it throughout the day. We're going into it when we fall asleep. We're going into it. We're in it when we wake up in the morning, those first few minutes. For me, that part is easy. Just being in hypnosis, that's the most simple thing ever. It's more just the realization, this is what people need to see, is the realization that how significant it is to utilize that, because when you're in that subconscious mind, that's where you can reprogram, the thoughts and the connections and things that are causing whatever symptoms you're going through. They're causing you to, the subconscious mind means you're working on autopilot, right? Like, so anything you're doing, if someone says, oh, Carl, I'm so depressed, and you go, well, have you ever considered just simply not being depressed? Obviously, it's not as easy as that, because they actually have a habit of having a low mood. Now, if you have a habit of anything, or you have a habit of being anxious and elevated and freaked out and a bit stressed, if you have a habit, then that automatically means that you have autopilot processes in your subconscious mind causing you to do that, and it's outside of your conscious control. So talk therapy is kind of a bit crazy, because what are you doing spending all this time just talking about your issues? I know it can be a huge support, a huge help at certain times, but if you want to actually change something, you have to utilize the subconscious mind to reprogram it, to actually work with the autopilot thoughts and feelings and reactions. You have to work on that level. Otherwise, you can't get there. So
stop being depressed now, please. Slap.
Have you ever thought about just simply not doing that? It's the same as people, eating is a really tricky one, isn't it? Because we will get into this autopilot pattern, of, I need to have something sweet after dinner. Well, there's lots of midnight eaters or snackers or whatever. And people feel like they're going crazy, and people that hide, they'll, you can go to the supermarket and you can get a bunch of lollies and then hide in your car and eat them really quickly, or ice cream or whatever. We do all sorts of these things, and we kind of go, it makes you feel really crazy, when you're experiencing that as a person, because you kind of go, why can't I just simply not freaking do it? Like, stop, like you might say, okay, tomorrow I'm definitely not going to do that. And then you find yourself back in the pantry at midnight. What is going on? So it's essential to realize that, in a way, consciously you are out of control, but there's also a way to just debunk that and unknot it. But you have to work at that hypnosis level.
Yeah. Or get really embarrassed to then make the change.
Well, if embarrassment helps, then I guess.
It's not very right. Well, I've done it like, Kate's like, all right, we're not going to do ice cream anymore. I'm like, yeah, today's the last day. And I buy a box of, the ice creams that Kate and I like. I'm like, we're going to have one each. They'll be done. And Kate catches me walking through the city eating one of them. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm cleaning up the box so there's only 2 left. She's like, you son of a gun. So
ice cream is such a funny one. It's so common as well. My partner has a thing with ice cream too. And it's about, when we're children, it's like a happy day is when like your mom or your dad or your grandma or your grandpa like take you for an ice cream. And so people want to connect with that feeling. They're like, I just want to feel, or they're like, a memory might be like, I remember going to grandma's house, and grandma was the only one who loved me, and she loved me so much that every time I went to her house after school, she gave me a bowl of ice cream. And so people want to connect with, they don't realize what they're doing, and it can be really abstract what someone is into. It can be like a chocolate chip cookies. They're like, it's just chocolate, I can't get past chocolate chip cookies. And it's about what those associations are underneath. And working with that, for people realize like, oh, I don't have to have ice cream to realize like I'm a loved person and receive comfort anymore.
What? Sorry, no, I didn't hear that. We're just.
It was never the actual ice cream. Don't worry, we can gloss over that bit. You can erase that from your mind. Ice cream is, it loves you. Nobody can love you like ice cream can.
And that brings us to the end of the first episode with Forrest, knowing that ice cream loves us and a bit of her experiences and some of her influences. Obviously, this episode could go for many hours, but we're going to dive into the next episode, which will be on more of a case study to see how Forrest and RTT actually works. Till next time, adios, amigos. Thank you so much for joining us on Table Talk. Hopefully you got some insightful information from those health professionals and you can apply it to your own life and own health and fitness. Remember to give us a like and subscribe, share to the channel, and if you feel you'd like to be on the next podcast episode, reach out to us on the links below and we'd love to see you on the next episode. Adios, amigos.